We are here with Anya Armentrout, who has a blog slash Substack covering the Valkyries daily. Anya, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy to be here, and it's such a great team to cover. They're always doing something new. There's always a new lineup to talk about, always a new strat, a team that rotates through so many players. It's just a blast to talk about. And they've been so impressive their first season. I know I was like, ooh, how are they going to do? But blown it out of the waters for, I think, everybody's expectations, except
So,
for head coach. She knew what
yeah,
was
yeah, absolutely.
going on.
So let's talk about what it's like to cover the team day to day. I know this is part of your career or aspiring career in journalism, but the idea, like, did you just go, oh, like, I like basketball. The Valkyries are here. Like, I just kind of want to try this out. Like, what was the inspiration to create the Substack?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of that. I do writing for my school paper. I'm the sports editor there, but we don't really do the kind of like game by game, day to day covering a team like that. We don't do the beat writing. And I really wanted a chance to start working on that. And I was also so excited about getting a WNBA team. I love basketball. I love women's basketball. And the Bay feels like the perfect place for it. Like we've been like screaming for a team here for so long. Um, and I thought this would be a great chance to really get in on this team and watch them really closely and write about them and start getting out more content because they're a young team. They don't have as many blogs going on. We have fantastic coverage from Marissa and Gemi of the Chronicle,
She's
but not a
amazing.
lot of like. Yeah, she's doing such great stuff, but not as much like really consistent reporting. So I see there's kind of a space for it, and it's been so fun to see how they're doing and to watch them play and
It's
just
literally the reason that we have this podcast for the same thing. We thought, hey, we cover the Warriors, which I know on your I've seen in different profiles where you have there's a Draymond Green mention in some of your profiles. The Warriors, the 49ers, the Giants. So we cover Bay Area sports. And when we heard the Valkyries were definitely coming, we thought, okay, this would be awesome to kind of tell the origin story of the team. And it's been a blast. Like, they are so fun to talk about, and I imagine they're so fun to write about. But let's go backwards a little bit. I'm interested in the basketball fandom. Where does the basketball fandom come from? Like, how did you get inspired or to follow basketball so closely?
I mean, growing up in SF, like from the area where you got the Warriors dynasty, just the one, you love the Warriors. You just know, like, we've got the best team when you're a kid. But I only started really following basketball closely in college. I go to a tiny liberal arts college, and so you're able to just watch all of the games. And I started watching games and really enjoying just going. And we're not fantastic at basketball. It's a small school. They're all student athletes, but just getting to watch the game and see the beauty of the game and really want to try to capture that with writing and capture like what's going on and how cool playing can be, and especially like the WNBA just so inspiring with getting women to the forefront of what we're talking about and seeing women in such successful positions and playing such a fun game.
How closely were you? Like, were you part of the Caitlin Clark wave of college basketball, or were you following college hoops, women's college hoops before then? Like, where did your like fandom crescendo? Because I can say, when I was younger, now this is if I'm doing the math, maybe even before you were born. I went to San Jose State, and in the late 90s, so this is pre WNBA, or maybe it's like right around the same time that the WNBA started, there was a second league called the ABL, and Joe Lacob owned the San Jose team. So they actually played on campus. And
Oh,
AZ Fudd, the player from Connecticut. She is named after a player who had played at Stanford and was like the premier player on the San Jose team, the San Jose Lasers. Her name was Jennifer Az, played at Stanford on the, I think that 96 Olympic team, that famous team. And so I had like literally walked by her because she was practicing and I was on campus and I walked by her and I kind of froze. I wanted to say like, oh, I know who you are. I've been following you from your Stanford days, but I kind of froze and didn't say that. But so that like that I've been, I wouldn't say I was following closely, but like I have so many memories of going back to those days because the Stanford teams in the Bay Area were so good. And we even had a little, we even had up until recently where Stanford was still very relevant in women's college hoops. But I will say that my up and down fandom, I really, once the Caitlin stuff happened in college hoops, I was like, wow, like there is so much opportunity here for women's college basketball to just really take a leap. And so I started paying attention, and my son, who's also part of this podcast, Brian, he started to really pay close attention, and he started watching so many games. And he actually, I think I would say he probably watched as much Valkyries basketball so far as he would the Warriors, because we also do a Warriors podcast. So he's just as in tuned, and I'm catching up. So my fandom goes back far, but not until really the Caitlin stuff did I was like, okay, I need to follow this day to day. I need to know all the stories. I need to learn all the players, and that's why this has been fun because I didn't know who Kayla Thornton was last year, and now I watch her play, and I'm like, man, I need to figure out where she came from and all these different things. So like how like where did you see like everything start crescendoing yourself?
I think it was getting this Valks team and having like a team to really root for and to really care about. I'm still not like the most into college basketball. For me, there's so many teams. It's like almost like overwhelming for me to really lock down on one to really have a fandom on. But seeing that we're having a team in the Bay and having like a team that I can really focus on and get to know, and it's all of these players. Like there's not one star specific. I mean, Thornton is coming out as like the big lead on the box score, but they really play a huge like community game. They're passing around. I thought it was like so interesting. Like the last game, like 8 players who put down points. Like the biggest gap was like 8 and 16 between the 2 players. Yeah, so having a team that I can really like care about and get into and watch all of their games and watch them closely, I think that really like as you're saying, that kind of crescendo of really starting to care and really see how amazing it can be and how much you can learn just from following it really quickly. Yeah, and really closely. Yeah.
Your
And getting
last
that team to care about.
your
Yeah.
last piece was about the Valkyries beating the Fever and how you thought it was like a stop Caitlin Clark 101 like blueprint. What stood out about how they played Caitlin Clark to you?
I thought it was such because you've seen them like try to work on stars before, and to great success with some, like with Aja Wilson, they had um, Burton doing a lot of that. And then you saw like against the Sparks with Kelsey Plum, they didn't really focus as much on the stars. They locked down the rest of the defense. And then against Paige Beckers in the last game, they couldn't really get her down. They couldn't figure out how to defend her. But the defense on Caitlin Clark, they were playing man on man, but they were switching it around so much. Like there wasn't one consistent defender for Clark to get comfortable with, to figure out how to score around, to really get a rhythm around. They were moving it around. They were keeping her so tied up, and to so much success. Like this, I think this is the second game that she hasn't hit any threes. And preseason, this would probably have been like a schedule loss, if anybody was looking at it.
Oh yeah.
But the Valkyries like love to defy those expectations. And even then we see not just that like community and rotating around Clark, but the rotating around who's making the shots, getting the bench outscored the starters. You saw Chloe Bibby, her first WNBA game ever, and she put down 12 points, was it? Like really getting in there and everybody having a part and participating as such a great way to counter a team that is such a big star, is to say, you have a big star, we have an incredible full roster. And
Right.
that can be.
Yeah, Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston,
Yeah.
they have great chemistry together. And I kind of was wondering as the game was going on. So Brian and I were talking about how the Dallas game to the Valkyries could have been seen as a little bit of a trap game because Dallas is one of the least winning teams in the league, though they have some nice pieces. Like, it was amazing watching Paige Beckers play. But at the same time, you're kind of looking forward knowing that Caitlin is coming into your building and the hoopla surrounding it. She's the biggest star in the league right now. And so I kind of then wondered, well, if you're Indiana coming off of being clinching the spot in the Commissioner's Cup, there's a little bit of a letdown from that. And there's a little bit of a letdown from the hoopla of the scuffle. I don't know what we can call it with Connecticut. And like, there was a crazy amount of media around there. So just kind of coming off of that, I thought, this is a real good opportunity for the Valkyries to take advantage because, Caitlin's human. Her team is human. They're dealing with a lot of attention that is necessarily not basketball related. And it just seems like that bulldog mentality that Natalie Nakase has as a coach, her spirit really comes out on the court in her players. And when I saw Kayla, who is quite a bit bigger than Caitlin, but maybe from a foot speed perspective, probably can hang with Caitlin. When I saw her go, okay, like I'm guarding this woman once she crosses half court, I was like, oh man, this is like they really feel like they can win this basketball game, and they went out and they did it, even though it took quite a run there to do it. But so the idea that that they have this week, and they're playing so good, and then they have the little fallback game against Dallas. Does this change your expectations? Like, are you watching this team and actively thinking they're like a 500 team or better, or do you kind of set the expectation of like they're still an expansion team and they're outplaying expectations, so I have to be realistic? Like, when you're covering it, how are you thinking about these basketball games?
Yeah, I mean, my expectations just keep being raised with every game. I think this one really like showed how well they can do. But I think like I try to cover them with I think the same expectation that Coach Nikase has, which is that it doesn't matter if they're an expansion team. It doesn't matter that like this is the first time a lot of these players are getting like the biggest minutes they've ever played. Like, this is a team that can win, and this is a team that should be winning, with every game. Like, they go in and they prove that they can compete, and it's about writing them with those high expectations. And I think Coach Nakase is coaching them to those high expectations, and that's why they're doing so well. Like, you talk about how she's got that spirit, that fighting spirit, but she's also playing them so smart. Like, they're undersized in a lot of ways. They're much smaller. You saw a lot of like matchups where they look really a teensy team, but they're playing without positions. They're playing really smart. They've got these like genius defenses that are changing up all the time. Like I'm not sure about going as hard on threes as they go. Um, that's something that I'm like, guys, like, get into the paint. Like, you do so much better in the paint.
Yeah.
But they really like they play smart, and they prove like they nearly upset the Liberty there. They played really strong against the Lynx. Like, they have this potential, and I think writing them and holding them to the potential that they can have, and keeping the expectations high. As a writer, like, it's even a little fun when they don't need it. It would be boring to write about a team that wins every game, even if I would love to be that fan. Keeping the expectations high, seeing what they can be. I don't think they're an expansion team that is going in with they're not tanking, and a lot of expansion teams try to get by, building up their roster in a few years, but that's not what they're doing. And that's what I love to see. That's what I love to see in any basketball at all. The NBA has such like that tanking issue. And it's so nice to see players try to really be the best they can be. And it's such a reward to the fans out in Valhalla, which is also a term I have to, but I think that's the corniest name ever. But I think they're doing well, and I think they're holding high expectations, and we can too.
Yeah, no, it's great. As you are, writing the Substack and just keeping it up, like, it is a passionate hobby for you. It's not like, this is something where you're getting paid to do it, or you're, someone is asking you to do it. Like, it is out of passion, and it is out of your own personal enjoyment. When you think about this as a like, are you also thinking of it as like, hey, maybe down the line this is something that I might be interested in doing, or is this really just like a passionate side hobby for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as kind of like this has kind of been a test to see how much I enjoy really writing in this consistent way. And I really do. It's been a blast. It's something I'd love to do professionally. And to, even if it's not that, to keep getting these reps in of writing. I was talking to Sloan Martin, who's the Lynx play-by-play commentator, and she was talking about like doing a blog like this, getting the reps in of writing and just improving. Like that's part of it for me, is to just really get a lot of stories out and get practicing, because it's something that's so enjoyable, and that I've really grown to love, and a passionate hobby. And if you can do what you love and be paid for it, that's also great, even if the sports media world is looking a little bleaker at times.
Right. And I just put the link to your Substack for people watching on video. Substack.com/@ Anya, Anya, Armentrout, Armentrout. So you can find all of the work there. So as we go through the rest of this season, we're going to hit the All-Star break, and there's Eurobasket going on right now. So the Valkyries are without some players, as are some other teams, but I think this hits the Valkyries more than any team because of how they put their roster together. Do you see, like, what do you see for the future, not only of this season, but of kind of the WNBA? There's going to be they opted out of their deal, so they're going to have to renegotiate with the WNBA, the Players Association, to get the value that they believe that they deserve. Forecasting, kind of the rest of the season and into the next couple years with a couple expansion teams. Like, what do you see for not only the Valkyries but the league itself? Are we looking at a tremendous growth opportunity where the WNBA kind of slides in, maybe into, like, I don't even know how you can rank sports, but the NFL is obviously the biggest. The NBA is right there. Major League Baseball, NHL. Then you have some outside ones like the UFC. Obviously, in the U.S., soccer is not as big as it is worldwide, but worldwide, there's soccer. Like, is the WNBA kind of sneaking into this conversation of some of the bigger sports out there?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. As we're looking at the future and looking at that new collective bargaining agreement, I think the WNBA in some ways is already almost bigger than it's perceived. I saw like a wonderful piece, and I'm forgetting the writer, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, about the amount that WNBA players are getting paid as compared to the revenue they're bringing in to the NBA, and they're being shortcut. The NBA has both of these organizations, and the WNBA is getting less money than it's giving, the amount of views it brings. I think this new collective bargaining agreement and compensating the players for the money they're earning and the views they're bringing is going to be key to also recognizing these women as professionals and as accomplished athletes. As you see, like, the pay scale and the pay ratio is absurd, and it's not accurate to the amount of money and views that the different leagues are bringing in. Yeah, and I think with the coming to expansion teams, I think just bringing the league bigger, bringing the league to more eyes, like getting a WNBA team in the Bay, just for me personally, as somebody who's already a basketball fan, totally blew up my fandom and totally got me into it so much more. I think having a team to root for does a ton to expand eyes. You get a whole new city who, once you have somebody to root for, once you have like, hey, that's my team, suddenly you care about the whole thing so much more. And that expansion, and hopefully seeing expansion teams that are really financially stable and really able to get that market around that, will be really great to see, to bring the league more success and the success it deserves. Women's basketball has been around for a long time. If you look into like the history, like when basketball was first invented in like the 1800s, it was so much more popular with women than with men. which is a fact not many people know, but it was really immediately popular with women. And it was shut down because people were worried that women were playing too physically. But we've got a time for this to rebirth and for it to blow up some more, and to have a lot of young people and younger women see that this is something that they can be great at, you know. I saw the WNBA just had a new kind of promotion, which was kind of a small thing, but I think very representational of adding and drawing in the WNBA 3-point line to just pick up basketball spots in different parks, you know, making the WNBA and women playing basketball something that's normal and something that can be casual and something that's everywhere. I think Caitlin Clark has done a lot to bring eyes to the fandom, and I think a lot of people have turned their eyes because of Caitlin Clark and are saying, hey, this is a great place to watch games. This is a great league. You know, it's more than just one player. And every player in the league is doing amazing things and playing an amazing game.
I am still reading a book called Shattering the Glass, The Remarkable History of Women's Basketball. And it says some of the things that you just mentioned with how they would dress and whether or not it was too masculine and whether or not the rules were too physical. And they created separate rules for women's basketball versus the men's game because of these different notions. And the evolution of the players and the game is amazing to read. It's a little bit textbooky, so it's not like this nice and easy read, but that would be a book that I would tell people who are watching and listening to this to check out. It's about 20 years old, so it's not up to kind of current time frame, but it gives you a really good history of women's basketball. So I wanted to ask you, as we get to the end of this, as a younger creator, as a younger journalist, you've grown up with certain things that have just been there for you. Like, are there any creative things that leagues can do to attract younger people who maybe, you know, grew up with phones and devices and different screens and such, whose kind of day-to-day habits are different than the people who are actually putting this content together and creating these leagues? Like, what do you see as a young fan that you think could be helpful to your fandom that some of these leagues aren't doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think something a lot of leagues are doing is having that strong social media presence, having you be able to connect with players, I think is a big one that I think a lot of teams are doing, and I think to keep that up. But I think a big one, and I think something that I think every generation is kind of seeing as they're trying to watch and be a fan of these teams, is it's really hard to watch games nowadays. It's really hard to figure out where you can stream it, you know, what channel, what platform, what's blacked out, like locally, you know, like
Yes.
being your own way. Like I have the WNBA League Pass, and I don't think I've ever been able to watch a game with it. You know, like I don't think like it's every time I go and it's like, oh, you have to go somewhere else. Oh, this one isn't. I'm like why did I buy this?
Right.
You know, it's really hard to access those games, and that makes it hard to be a fan. And that's something that drives people to use illegal streaming services and sites because they can't figure it out, and it's really expensive to get all those platforms. I think you see a lot of like young people who they don't have cable, you know, they don't have a TV they're watching it on. And adapting towards that and finding a way that's like consistent for people to be able to watch games, because watching games and getting used to being able to watch games really drives fandom. I think that's a big one, is making sure people who want to watch the games can, and people who kind of want to watch the games can too. People who kind of would watch it but don't want to figure out all the technical things and get this subscription, all of this, and then figuring it out, making it accessible, I think is a huge thing.
I follow this streaming industry very closely, and one of the things that I would like to see uh, enabled, and maybe the WNBA could kind of be at the forefront of this, is we all have the WNBA app. I also have League Pass. I mostly have League Pass because you know, I'm checking out replays when I can of games that have maybe happened. You know, I get to watch the Valkyries pretty much every single game, except for, you know, the only one I don't get is the Ion game. So if I don't have because I don't have the Ion channels on my Hulu Live, so I think I can watch those through the WNBA app. But anyways, I would love to see Like they know that the Valkyries are my favorite team. And I could pick what teams I'm very interested in. And every morning when I wake up, I get a notification that says, here are all the teams you're interested in. Here's where, out of the services that you have, here's where you can find them. And to be very specific in that. And then in the same thing, say, but you are also a League Pass member. So this game will be available at this time. If you can't watch it live, we will have it for you at this time. Like, be very directional about it, because I think, if something's on Amazon Prime and you don't have Amazon Prime, maybe the WNBA is a bit of a vehicle to get that person to subscribe to Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime gives the WNBA a little bit of a kickback. And just like that, because we're not, the WNBA has so many partners, you're not competing necessarily against Amazon Prime with League Pass. You're trying to be a little bit of a vessel to the fans so that they can make sure to see their teams in your league easier. So I wish they would do something like that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of tech involved, and they are still a growing league, and they will add more people to do those things for them as they grow. But yeah, something like that. And I was also thinking, now this is not in my wheelhouse, but I remember, and Snapchat may not be cool anymore, whatever, I don't know. I use Instagram Reels, but I'm also old. That's easiest for me. But I was thinking, if you had channels like for teams where, let's say, after every quarter of a live game, there's like a small recap of like, oh, Valkyries down 23-20. Here's some of the big plays you missed. And it's just in like a 90-second reel. And then at the end of that, there's like some information about, oh, if you want to watch this game live, here's where you can go. And so you're giving the fan content, which that might be enough for fans, right? They may just want to follow the Valkyries through an Instagram feed, knowing that 5 minutes after the quarter is up, they'll get some sort of content. Or maybe they'll then go, oh yeah, I forgot the game is on. I need to go set my DVR. I need to go watch it. I would like to see a little bit more interaction that way as well. But again, like, that may only work for how my brain works with social media, and not for how the younger person works today with social media. Okay, let's get to you. I know you're a Blue Sky user. Why don't you let people know how they can find you on Blue Sky? I know you're talking lots of Valkyries on Blue Sky.
Yes, Anya Armentrout on Blue Sky too. I just send out my articles. Sometimes I'll do some within the game commentary. If I think of anything insightful enough while they're playing, you can see my live reactions to anything crazy. Yeah, on Blue Sky, and follow me on Substack. Everything is published and free, available to read. Every game. Sometimes not stuff that's on a specific game. Yeah.
So the one thing that I mentioned to Anya outside of this interview is but people who listen to this show know I'm very interested in creating community around the Valkyries, and I shot Anya a note because I'm so happy that she's writing about the Valkyries, and I said, hey, let's, what do you think about doing this kind of thing, and creating a spot for Valkyries fans to come in, and they can read your links and they can listen to our shows. We could also just talk about the game. So if we do something, I will have a space for Anya, because I just love that people are creating content and writing, and you have a journalism background, which is like, it just puts you a little bit more on a pedestal in my mind, because of so much how much I love journalism. But check out the Substack, substack.com at Anya Armentrout, and follow her on Blue Sky if you're interested in Valks coverage. And hey, she's an up and comer, y'all. You want to get in early on the Anya business, because she's doing this for fun and maybe for real down the line. She also, shout out to Marissa from the Chronicle. She's doing amazing stuff. I think she's the only actual day-to-day beat writer on a staff. Like, the Athletic does not have one. San Francisco Standard, I don't believe, has one that goes to every game. Like, she's the one. Yeah. So
she travels with them and everything. Yeah,
she's been doing a tremendous job. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to Anya. For Brian, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.